Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome To the Point. Hope you're doing well on this Sunday. Have a lot to react to today. Going to react to the trade deadline. Going to talk about UFC 299, which was last night. What a pay-per-view. What a show. One of the best pay-per-views in recent memory from the UFC. And we're going to dive into that. There's some NFL news that's taking place. We also got free agency opening up in the NFL tomorrow. So there'll be a lot to talk about in the NFL front this week. So much to chat about today. Weird today because it is the spring ahead. Spring ahead, fall behind, so stupid. It should be this spring ahead the entire year. Falling back, dark earlier is just it's a worse place to be. Nothing good about it. Doesn't have to be that way. But people decide that that's the way it should be. But I'm glad that we're going to have sun later in the day when we have sun, because there's none today. But I hope everybody who's tired today, I think I have a benefit because I went to bed last night at 3:35 a.m. after watching the UFC. Technically, that was 2:35, and then it sprung ahead at 2 a.m. But to me, I went to bed at 3 o'clock. You wake up, okay, you're used to it. I went to bed at 3 last night. I got this amount of sleep. I think going to bed, then missing that hour, say you went to bed last night at 10, I think you got to suck it up for one night, keep your eyes open, which I did, watching a great fight card, and you're set up better for the long run. That might make no sense. To me, it makes sense in my brain. But also, you can get over it. It's a week. It's like jet lag. Oh, I'm so tired. Just stay up. Suck it up. But if you're tired today, it'll pass. So, suck it up. Trade deadline was Friday in the National Hockey League. We've had games since, but there's lots to dissect. I want to lead off this segment by giving credit to two general managers and two franchises that I thought never learn from past mistakes. For years, and when I say for years, that's not hyperbole, that's not an oversimplification. For years, the Carolina Hurricanes have been one of the most consistent franchises in all of hockey. Every single season, at the very least, they get to the second round of the playoffs. They have been to the conference finals in 3 of the last 4 years. Think about that. Small Raleigh, North Carolina, the Carolina Hurricanes, 3 of the last 4 conference finals in the Eastern Conference. And yet, every year, they'd have a good team. They've had one of the best bench bosses in the sport in Rob Brendamore, who is still a free agent, which is mind-boggling to me, but that's another story for another day. And they get to a certain point. Last season, they get to the conference final. They play the Florida Panthers. They go into that series as the prohibitive favorite, just like every team did, facing the Florida Panthers. And Carolina got swept. All one-goal games. Rob Brendamore said it wasn't a sweep. Don't understand his logic there. You lose 4 in a row, that's a sweep. I don't care if you lose 8-1, 2-1. Every game goes to overtime. You lose. Period. There's a winner, there's a loser after every game. And that's just the way the cookie crumbles. Ties are for losers. So's the shootout, but again, another story for another day. But Carolina, who's had a weird season, ups and downs, not playing that great of hockey for large spurts. Freddie Anderson has some blood clot issues. His career might be over. You're balancing 3 goaltenders with Korchkov, Spencer Martin, and Antti Ranta. But then you hear Freddie Anderson's going to be back for the playoffs. He might start a game this week. Great news. Good news for the Hurricanes. And you look up and go, Svechnikov is healthy. Aho's had a good year. Pesci's a pending UFA, but I wouldn't trade him because he's valuable. And this team does have a chance to get to the Stanley Cup final in a very weak, contrary to popular belief, Eastern Conference. They beat the Rangers before. Why wouldn't they be able to beat the Rangers again? So you put all that into the pot, but you go up and go, okay, they might get to the conference finals again. And if they run into the juggernaut that is the Florida Panthers, who I have just irrational confidence in, they're not going to win that series. And they went into the deadline and they bought. Carolina won the Jake Gensel sweepstakes. You could argue the best player available, Noah Hanifin, to me, very close. Hanifin's valuable. He's a defenseman. I've said this before. There are more bad defensemen than good defensemen in the NHL. But either or, Carolina doesn't need another D-man. They do need help up front. And Pittsburgh, who were a seller, looking to offload pieces, trade Jake Gensel to Carolina. Pittsburgh gets 3 prospects back. Ville Koivunen, the top one. He's a point-per-game player in the top Finnish league right now at 20 years old. We will see how he does when he comes over. The other 2 guys, wait and see. I would have went more with traditional draft picks in that trade, but Dubas wanted pieces, wanted prospects. But for Carolina, you get Jay Gensel. They then make a move with the Washington Capitals to acquire Evgeny Kuznetsov, who at times is a dominant player, was extremely close to winning the Conn Smythe Trophy in 2018 when the Washington Capitals won the Stanley Cup. But since then, he's been found in tricky situations. League pictures with him, with women, and a white powdery substance, which you can do your own research on what you think that might be. Cocaine. But he found in those situations. Then he enters the player assistance program, has been in it multiple times throughout his career, has had a number of bad seasons, and when he got back into the league on Tuesday, Washington put him on waivers and sent him down to the Hershey Bears, their American Hockey League affiliate. Carolina said, can Washington retain some money? Which they did. They now have Kuznetsov at $3.9 million this year and next. So they take a player that's had some problems, that does have a high upside when he wants to compete, when he wants to play. And you get Jay Gensel to add to your wingers to make you a more dangerous team. Score more goals. Have more threats. Have more options with guys like Seth Jarvis. Where are you going to put him in the lineup? Where's he going to fit in? There's some competition now on that team to see who gets ice time. But for Don Waddell and their owner, Tom Dundon, this was a pivot in philosophy. This was a pivot in direction. And I applaud them for not doing the same thing they normally do year after year. Was Evgeny Kuznetsov the best player that you could pick up? Looking at the day and looking at the way the league is set up, trades are difficult, no doubt about it. They wanted center help, they get one. There wasn't really big names available. Sidney Crosby was not going to be traded. It's unfortunate, but he wasn't. Bad teams are going to hold on to pieces right now. Seattle has some players you might like. They believe they're still in a window. They believe they can turn it. They're not going to make the playoffs this year, but they can turn it around next season and be a playoff team again. That's the thought of that team moving forward. So they're not going to trade an Adam Larson or a Yanni Gourde or a Jordan Eberle, who extended in Seattle on Friday on a 2-year, $9.5 million deal. So it's just not happening. You can only get the players that are available, and it was a team like Vegas that there was a stunner in late that, and we'll get to that makes it that much more interesting. But Gensel was the fish. Kuznetsov was available, and Washington wanted to get rid of him. They've wanted him gone for some time. Do I trust Evgeny Kuznetsov? I do not. Do I think Rob Brendamore is going to love him as a player? I do not. But they're trying to win. They are in their window. The Eastern Conference is weak. They're not elite teams. That's why if you're a Toronto Maple Leaf fan or not many thinking teams that are not in first or second place, you have a chance. You're not giving up yet. Because the teams around you other than Florida aren't that good. They have flaws too. The Philadelphia Flyers, who got destroyed last night by the Tampa Bay Lightning, who are one of the worst defensive teams in hockey, they put a 7 spot on the Flyers. The Flyers are technically a playoff team right now. Tampa's struggling. They were playing horrible hockey prior to last night. They find their groove. But that's the Eastern Conference. It's back and forth. Detroit is in a complete tailspin. Losing in Vegas, losing in Arizona so far this weekend on their Western Conference trip. But to me, Don Waddell had so many deadlines where you acquire like Max Domi edition years ago, and you acquire a guy, okay, we got him on our team, but he's not a difference maker. Gensel is a difference maker. Kuznetsov, if he's engaged and if he wants to play, can be, because he was in 2018. No doubt about it. Do I buy it? I'm not buying in yet, but it's at least a chance. It's something that could result in positive moments for the Carolina Hurricanes. So I applaud Don Waddell because he needed to do something. He couldn't go through another deadline picking around the edges and banking on his team winning because they don't have the firepower. You can play great defensive hockey, but at the end of the day, you need somebody, a game breaker, to score a big goal for you. Matthew Tkachuk did it 3 times in this series where Florida swept them. That was their game breaker. Carolina couldn't match it. Another GM, Kevin Cheveldayoff. Since the Jets relocated back to the Peg, Cheveldayoff's been the only GM in the franchise's history. He's been through multiple head coaches, decisions on players, a conference final appearance, multiple conference finals appearances. But you looked around at the Winnipeg Jets and said, wow, Wheeler hates this team. I thought it was going to be a lock that Hellebuck was going to leave. Scheifele going to go. But then before the start of the season, you lock both of them up. Bones behind the bench. And they morph into one of the best defensive teams in hockey. Playing well, trade deadline after trade deadline, struggling a bit. And yes, they got destroyed last night by the Vancouver Canucks. But the Winnipeg Jets acquiring Tyler Toffoli after getting Sean Monahan from the Montreal Canadiens center depth, and another winger who can score goals, who has lots of playoff experience. I think Chevy likes this team. I think they believe in each other. They play extremely hard. And he said Tyler Toffoli's available. The New Jersey Devils, what the hell are they doing? We can get Toffoli for a second in 2025, a third in 2024. So what? Let's try to win. Because the Jets, to me, the top three of the Central Division is tougher than any division in hockey. Boston, Florida, Toronto, no, tougher. The Central. Pacific's good. Right now you got Edmonton, Vancouver. You got some good teams there. But no. Vegas in there, I'm not doing it. No, wrong. Wrong, Jerry. Metropolitan, spare me. The Central Division features the top three: Dallas, Winnipeg, and Colorado. Dallas, top to bottom, is an elite team with one of the best goalies in the sport, a great coach, and they only get Chris Tanev at the deadline, but they also got this addition by this kid named Logan Stankoven, who's got 8 points in 6 games, was leading the American Hockey League in points as a 20-year-old, and he's their deadline acquisition. Doesn't cost you anything. He gets called up. They have been great. They were in the conference final last year, lost to Vegas, tight series, physical series. They are better now than they were last year. Very good team. Colorado has the MVP of the league if the season ended today, in Nathan MacKinnon. McKinnon's had 32 games with at least a point on home ice, which is the second longest streak in NHL history, behind the great one. Nikushkin's back, OT winner, Friday night. Mikko Rantanen, one of the best right wingers in hockey. Cale Makar, the best defenseman in the sport. Georgiev, pretty damn good when he wants to be. Colorado has their flaws, but you look around. They pick up Jakub Trenin. They pick up Brandon Duhaime, who I like, doesn't score goals, but he adds to a team, let me tell you. Get Casey Middlestat. Get Sean Walker. They had a busy trade deadline. They wanted to be better. They want to be a force going in to the postseason. And I liked what the work they did. So Winnipeg looked around and went, number one, I think the Winnipeg Jets mindset should be these regular season games, these last 20 games, are vital. The Vegas Golden Knights, I think they care about getting in. I think they'd love to have on ice, don't get me wrong. You play in front of that raucous crowd, the Vegas environment, it's fun. But do I think they care if they play road, if they have to go to Edmonton? They finished a series in Edmonton, Alberta last year. They finished Dallas on the road in the Western Conference Final. They know what it's like to win series on the road. So I think they have that wear and tear. I think for Winnipeg, avoiding playing Colorado or Dallas in the opening round is imperative. And that is numero uno. You want those two teams to play each other, beat each other up, and somebody has to come out of that series and play you. The Nashville Predators have won 10 of their last 11. A fantastic stretch. They are going to be a playoff team. They were busy on deadline day. They picked around the edges. They picked up Jason Zucker, who's had a down season, but I still like Jason Zucker. Picking up a few, Dennis Gurianov. You get a few guys. But they won 10 of the last 11. Good team. Saros could steal some games in a series, no doubt about it. He is that good. But if you're Winnipeg, you want Nashville. You want Nashville in a desperate way. You do not want to play Colorado or Dallas until that second round. In a perfect world, you don't want to play Vegas either, because Vegas is in the final wildcard spot right now, and I would not want to play Vegas. But I prefer to play LA in the opening round. I prefer to play Nashville, whoever it might be, for Winnipeg. That's my outlook on this. Is Winnipeg, I like their team more. They defend. Hellebuck, I think, is the Vezina frontrunner. Right now, he's been fantastic. Everybody just does the same work. Adding 19, 20 goals. You work hard. Defend well. Toffoli, I'm going to look at, I know he's played in a lot of playoff games in his career, winning 2 cups with Los Angeles, getting to another Stanley Cup final with the Montreal Canadiens in the Fauci postseason. He has played almost 800 games total, regular season. He's played 88 playoff games with 44 points. So I think Winnipeg says almost 100 games of experience, Stanley Cup champion, only 31. He's been in the league a long time, but he's only 31. He's not crazy old. He'll be 32 in late April. He's motivated because he's a pending unrestricted free agent. Let's help us win some series, go on a run, win some cups. I thought an LA reunion would work, but LA really didn't do much deadline day. Reportedly, they had a deal for Linus Ullmark for the Boston Bruins, but it fell through. And Ullmark made 40 saves yesterday in the Bruins' win against the Pittsburgh Penguins. It's a good thing they didn't deal him. But Chevy is always conservative like Donnie Waddell. Let's not make the move. Let's acquire a depth piece. We look around. Hellebuck's been great since the extension. Scheifele's had a good season with no drama. Morrissey's been solid. Since coming over, Monahan's been very good. Nino Niederreiter has been better than anybody could have predicted. He's been awesome for the Winnipeg Jets. If you just watch their games, you're like, oh, he doesn't have that many points. He plays hard. I think they love him in Winnipeg. Great contract. Dallas and Colorado are tough. Really good teams with better players than the Winnipeg Jets have. That is true. But the Jets have a great team. And that can do things. Because do I think Vegas had the best players? Of course not. They played the Edmonton Oilers. Draisaitl, McDavid are better than any individual on the Vegas Golden Knights. No question, no debate. Toronto playing Florida. Toronto had better players than the Florida Panthers. Florida playing Boston. I mean, you can go down the list of teams that have success. I think in the past, individuals in hockey could lift you somewhere. But now, the way the salary cap works, ice time, you can do a lot with star players. They might win you a couple games. They might score 5-6 goals in a series, but that doesn't mean you're necessarily going to win the series. If you don't have a great team, if you're not built correctly top to bottom, you aren't going to win the Stanley Cup, period. Vegas had the team full of butchers, physical pieces, and they would go up against anybody. Barbashev and Will Carrier, and they just knew how to approach it. And I look at Winnipeg, and they have a great team. I think you make the argument they have a better bottom six than Dallas. They might have a better bottom six than Colorado, even though Colorado did a lot to improve it over the last 48 hours. I applaud both these GMs for trying to win. The Western Conference, you need to be prepared because it is exponentially more difficult than the East. And I realize it might be tough to hear this because you might go to bed and don't watch the Western Conference. I do. And these teams are better. You got to go through so many tough teams just to get to the Stanley Cup final. It's going to be fun. But Winnipeg currently sits four points out of first in the Central with 3 games in hand on the Dallas Stars. So they control their own destiny. Have some success. Dallas takes a few losses. You're right back in it. Colorado has the same number of points as Winnipeg. Winnipeg has 2 games in hand on the Colorado Avalanche. Now, games in hand only mean anything if you win them. But the Jets are in control. Yes, they lost last night, but they faced the Washington Capitals, who refuse to give up, who keep staying in the playoff mix, even though they're not a good team whatsoever. They got Washington hoping to rebound tomorrow night. I'll get to Toronto in a second. I want to talk about New Jersey. Last weekend, I called New Jersey incompetent. I believe that was the word I used. It might not have been. I called them a lot of things. It was a gutless move to fire Lindy Ruff, which it was. The team plays like they don't have any guts. And then Tommy Fitzgerald, who got a big extension, now he's the president of hockey ops, says he's not going to trade Tyler Toffoli earlier in the week. But then we get to Thursday night and they're playing somebody. They won that game, I think. Montreal. Toffoli's held out because of just personal reasons, trying to protect. And then I knew, they're going to trade Tyler Toffoli, which they did to the Winnipeg Jets, as we just talked about. So we're not going to trade him, no, then we're going to trade him because our team's not that good and we're not going to make the playoffs. It's finally sinking into the dome. I'm like, okay, you're giving up. Really disappointing season. You fired your coach. You made it to the second round last year with a small team. You didn't address it. You didn't get a goalie last summer because the prices were too high. You couldn't get Hellebuck. You couldn't get Markstrom. You couldn't get anybody to come play goalie for you. Vanacek, Nico Dawes, and Akira Schmid is your tandem going into the season. Expecting any kind of success with those 3 goalies is completely incompetent. Stupidity a la max. And so New Jersey, we're punting on the season. We're done. Then they decide to trade for not 1, but 2 new goaltenders right before the deadline reaches a screeching halt. Jake Allen comes over from the Montreal Canadiens. And then they trade for Kaapo Kähkönen from San Jose, who I actually like. And Vitek Vanacek goes back to the sinking ship that is the San Jose Sharks. My only thought is why? What's the point? You're not getting in. Montreal's had 3 goalies all year. They've wanted to get rid of 1 all year. They finally do it. Jake Allen, you have another year with him at 3.85. And something we know definitively, not a debate, not a question mark, not a topic of discussion. Jake Allen's a good goaltender, but he's a backup goaltender. If he's your starting goalie, you're going nowhere. Just pure and simple. Also, he has a 17 no trade list. Great. Backup goaltender with a 17 no trade list. But Montreal, they've wanted to have him leave for a while. They finally get it done. They're stoked. Jersey takes him on. So here's my thoughts. Kakinen I like. But he's been on a bad team all year. And his confidence could be shot because you never know in these situations. And I'm looking up his deal, cap friendly. For Capo Kakinen. He is a free agent after this year. So he can walk for nothing at the end of the year. But if New Jersey wants to get a goalie in the summer, if Calgary's open to trading Markstrom and that trade happens, then you're paying two goalies over $9 million. That's not good spending. You don't have to do that. Dallas isn't doing that. Toronto doesn't do that. Better teams, playoff teams. Boston doesn't even do that. And they have the best tandem in the NHL. Colorado doesn't. All these teams. Winnipeg doesn't. And they got Laurent Brossoit. He hasn't had a 4-goal game allowed this season. The backup goaltender. He makes pennies. He's great. Or is it going to be Jake Allen and Akira Schmid? You're hoping Akira Schmid can blossom into your starting goaltender. It's stupid. They had a gutless, weak week. Pardon the pun. The New Jersey Devils. Weakweek. Actually, add an extra E on the end for effect. Just a weak performance from them. Stupid. Don't get it. Now you have Jake Allen, who you're kind of stuck with. If you want to add another goalie, then you have a whole bunch of money that's getting added. I'm fine with them trading Toffoli. They should. They're not going to make the playoffs. But they wait too long. Oh, we're still in it. You should have traded for Markstrom 3 weeks ago when they had a deal done. But it fell through. And then you go 3 weeks losing games with the same goalies that have been losing games for you all year. And yes, it didn't help them that Dougie Hamilton has missed basically the whole season. But your team wasn't good, and this is how you know. You missed the playoffs in a year where the Metropolitan Division is horrible. Pittsburgh stinks. Washington's in it, not a good team. Old, not very good. Columbus sucks. Bad all year, Columbus. Philly, who wants to miss the playoffs, wants to start a rebuild, might make the playoffs. Islanders are in the mix, sorta. I mean, it's something else. What's going on here? I don't know. But to me, New Jersey, their moves made no sense. Their approach made no sense. But you reap what you sow, and they've been doing stupid crap for a while now, and the chickens have come home to roost. Good luck, Jake Allen. Excuse me. But started out with a loss, New Jersey, yesterday, losing to the Hurricanes. Toronto. Toronto didn't do much. Thursday, they added Joel Edmondson, rugged defenseman with the Washington Capitals, Stanley Cup champion with the St. Louis Blues, made a Stanley Cup final with the Montreal Canadiens, so he's got lots of experience. And they had Connor Dewar, who's a depth fourth line center for the Wild, who they don't have to give up much for. They keep the picks they do have, top of the draft. They don't trade Easton Cowan. They don't trade Fraser Minton. Topi Niemelä stays. First of all, correct decision from Brad Treliving. There wasn't the pieces available that would make you want to do it. The Parayko Buchnevich pairing deal that never happened. Buchnevich stayed in St. Louis. That's intriguing, but that's a big trade. And it requires a lot of maneuvering. And Parayko does have 6 years left on his deal. So that's complicated. You add 2 defensemen. You're trying to stay competitive. And Dewar's a piece. They worked around the edges. For years, they've been big game hunting. Toronto didn't do much, neither did Boston. Boston acquired Pat Maroon, and that was it. They extended Parker Wotherspoon. But their team is their team. And they traded for Hampus Lindholm, and they traded for Tyler Bertuzzi last year and went all in. And they lost in the first round. And when you make those decisions and you aren't successful, it hurts you the next year because you cannot be as aggressive. Tampa Bay, they could only acquire Anthony Duclair and Matt Dumba. Duclair might be better at. Dumba is what he is. But you can only do so much when you don't have the pieces available. So I think Toronto did what they should have done. They shouldn't have went crazy trying to acquire pieces that probably weren't a fit or weren't available, at the very least. Brad Treliving, I think in the back of his mind, knows this, that it's highly unlikely that the Toronto Maple Leafs are going to win the Stanley Cup this year. And that's a hard pill to swallow, and that's a hard thing to admit. But if you're looking at it from a correct lens, if you're not a fan of this team, if you're not somebody that's just overly optimistic, if you're coming at it with the reality, just looking at straight down the barrel, the Toronto Maple Leafs are a good, not great team. They have good, not great goaltending. They have a below-average defense core. They have the best goal scorer in the world, one of the best passers in the world, Mitch Marner, and a good player in Bill Nylander. Solid players. But teams around them are better. Teams around them have won more, have that experience. I think this is a year for Treliving where he goes, if we're going to be successful, it's going to be on you guys. There's not a whole lot of help coming. Matthews, Marner, Nylander, go win something. If that's going to happen this year, it's going to be because you guys are that great. And I want to keep my assets because Easton Cowan could be an NHL player next year. Fraser Minton could be an NHL player next year. And our team could be better for it. This year's this year. You're hoping to win. You're going to make the playoffs. You want that success, no doubt about it. However, your team is what your team is. And dramatic trades, dramatic changes weren't really available. I didn't watch much of their game last night against the Montreal Canadiens. I was watching UFC. However, I did see something that was interesting. Edmondson obviously played, and Dewar both made their debuts. But what surprised me was that Simon Benoit was the healthy scratch for the Maple Leafs. And the reason that surprised me is I think Samal Benoit has been a really good player for the Maple Leafs this year, especially on their defense and the way some guys play. I can understand it also at some point where they go Edmondson, Benoit, Labushkin. Those three guys don't move the puck very well. They don't skate all that well. So we need somebody mobile. We need somebody to move the puck up the ice, to break the puck out of the zone more efficiently. Can't have three of the same people. But I would rather do that. To me, Samuel Benoit being out of the lineup when Liljegren or Brody are playing, to me, is a slap in the face, and it's just wrong from Sheldon Keefe. Timothy Liljegren, if you watch the Maple Leafs over the last couple weeks, he's been their worst player. He brings nothing to the table offensively or defensively, in my mind. I don't know what he does. At least you meet somebody and go, he sucks at work, but at least maybe he's funny. Maybe he's got something that is, redeemable quality. I don't see any in Timothy Liljegren as a hockey player. Off the ice, he might be a fucking laugh riot. On the ice, he brings nothing to the table. So I just look around and go, he's playing in front of Benoit, Brody, who 5-year contract, very good overall. Good signing, all that jazz. But he's a pending unrestricted free agent. You are not going to re-sign him. That is evident. Why should he get into the lineup every night just because he's TJ Brody? He can absolutely be a healthy scratch. He makes dumb decisions. I think Benoit is as fast as TJ Brody. So to me, that's one thing that I look at and it just bothers me. Their defense is going to be patchwork. You need to figure out pairings. Hopefully something will stick. And it's going to take some time. A good opponent to have is Montreal because they're not very good. And they don't bring a whole lot of high danger opportunities, and you're going to beat a bad team, which Toronto did last night. But Benoit being out of the lineup, Brody or Liljegren being in, that's not the way I'd want to move it moving forward here. Because that's just not optimal when it comes to winning. It's not a dangerous opponent. It's not a dangerous team. But I thought Treliving had a good deadline for what was available to him. And there were no really great other than Hanifin, and Hanifin was not going to be traded to Toronto. And clearly, Carolina was not going to move a Brett Pesce. There weren't many great defensemen available. Just weren't. Guys that are game changers to make your team a whole lot better. So while it's small, it doesn't seem impactful. Their team is their team, and they will be successful or they will fail based on these individuals. And we'll see what happens in about 20 games when the postseason starts. Edmonton gets Adam Henrique, Sam Carrick. They had depth in Troy Stetcher. They don't make a move on deadline day. They did move their first rounder. You get a center, you get a depth defenseman. They've lost 2 in a row on the road. They lost to Columbus on Thursday. They lose in the gimmick to the Sabres yesterday. So a bad road trip. It concludes, actually the game has started today in Pittsburgh, in the Steel City. It's already 1-0 Edmonton. A goal from Connor McDavid, unassisted. So some breaking news for you. They're a dangerous team. They're a good team. And they can only do so much with what they have. I like their moves. I like Adam Henrique. Carrick, he's got some toughness. Stetcher, he is what he is. We look around, it's on McDavid, it's on Draisaitl, it's on Hyman, Vander Kane to show up in the playoffs. For Stuart Skinner, who struggled last year, in particular in the Vegas series, to come out and play well because they don't get a backup goaltender. They don't trade for a Jake Allen or a stopgap. So it's on Stewart to be the guy with him and Calvin Pickard. I think they got a good team. And the West is tough. And it's grueling. But Edmonton's played good defensive hockey this season, a great turnaround. McDavid might get 100 assists. But it's about the style of play they bring to the playoffs. That will be the determining factor on how good they're going to be. They are a good team, but there are good teams surrounding them as well. I think they had a good deadline. They're going to be a fun team to watch in the playoffs. They very well could play Vegas or Los Angeles in the first round. Two teams they have familiarity with, two teams that they have history with. Edmonton did fine. Other teams I mentioned, Tampa gets Dumba, Duclair. Duclair had 3 points in his first game as a member of the Lightning last night. Zucker goes to Nashville. Pittsburgh, conditional 2025 first. Michael Bunting, who's wearing number 8. Philly Koivunen, Cruz Lucius, and Vasily Ponomarev, the prospects that go back in the Jake Gensel deal with Carolina. Kyle Oposo, former captain of the Buffalo Sabres, gets dealt to the Florida Panthers. They get a little tougher, harder to believe on that fourth line. They add more depth, another leader on that team, a pending UFA. I don't know how much longer he's going to play hockey, but I also think this clears the way for the Buffalo Sabres to name Rasmus Dahlin the next captain of their franchise going into next season. So a couple things there. But I like Kyle Oposo. He's a gamer. He's tough, good leader, all that stuff. Fourth line guy for Florida, playing it out with guys like Lomberg and Godoyevich. They got a tough bottom six. They're just a tough team in Florida. They crushed Calgary yesterday 5-1. Like I said, they're the best team in the league, period. Florida also extended Gustav Forsling on Thursday, 8 years, $46 million, $5.5 million per. Good for him. He was once on waivers. Looked like his career could be going down the drain. You could make an argument night in, night out, he's their most consistent defenseman. Phenomenal defensively, will block shots, moves the puck, just easy, no bullshit with Gustav Forsling, can go up against the opposing team's best players. He's fantastic. And really, the last team to talk about is Vegas. Mark Stone, lacerated spleen, out for the rest of the regular season. Jack Eichel missed time, but he's back. But Vegas, who won the Stanley Cup last year, looked around and go, we need some help. They get Anthony Mantha from the Washington Capitals. Good start. Then they land the big fish and Noah Hanifin. Give up defensive prospects Danil Miramanov, who is good, a 2025 first, and Calgary retains 50% for Hanifin to go to Vegas. You now look at Vegas with Hanifin, Whitecloud, Theodore, Petrangelo, Haig, Martinez. They have 7 deep on the back end. They have depth behind depth. What an addition there. And then the 4 o'clock stunner. Vegas acquired Tomas Hertl of the San Jose Sharks. Tomas has 6 years left on his contract, is currently injured. But I love Tomas Hertl. He's 30 years old. He's been through a lot of wars himself. And San Jose gets David Enstrom, top forward prospect, and a first-round pick in the 2025 NHL draft. So that means getting Mantha, getting Hanifin, getting Tomas Hertl. Vegas still has their first-round pick in the 2024 NHL draft, which is crazy. Tomas had a full no move, so he accepted this deal. Thinking back, San Jose, Vegas, same division, bitter rivals playing each other early in Vegas' start to their franchise. But San Jose is a brutal team. They aren't good. So they make this move. I like it. Yes, he's out with an injury. Right now, he'll be back. I think he'll be good when he comes back. He's competitive. He's played in 62 playoff games himself with 42 points, 24 goals. This year, he only had 34 points in 48 games, but again, injuries in there, playing on the worst team. I like Tomas Hertl. I think he helps Vegas. I think they're a dangerous. If Mark Stone can come back for the playoffs after recovering from his last rated spleen, you get a healthy back end. Aiden Hill and Logan Thompson, that tandem, they're dangerous. They're going to flip the switch, be that physical, pain-in-the-ass team that they were last year. Barbashev running over everybody. Marchessault, Mr. Conn Smythe, had a hat trick last night. He's up to 35 goals on the season. They still have to make the playoffs, don't get me wrong, because they're not a guarantee to get in at this point. They need to play good hockey down the stretch. But I think they're going to. They have an 8-point lead on the Calgary Flames. And while Calgary doesn't give up, and I credit that team for their competitive edge, I don't see the Kraken, I don't see the Blues, the Wild, who are all at 67 points, catching Vegas at this point. I think the thing for Vegas with 18 games remaining will be, can we catch LA? Can we surpass the Nashville Predators, who are an unstoppable force right now, who meet the Minnesota Wild this afternoon in Minneapolis? I think that's their quest. Seeing how far can they get to third in the Pacific. Unlikely because the Oilers have games in hand, but can we get back in and possibly get home ice? Can we pass the Oilers? Oilers have 4 games in hand on the Canucks. I don't think they believe it's out of the possibility that the Oilers get first in the Pacific Division. The Canucks have started to play a lot better hockey, and credit to them. Beat the Jets 5-1 last night. Beat LA earlier in the week. Playoff team. They're standing on business. They're starting to play the way you expect a team of that nature to play. So, interesting trade deadline. A lot of teams out west are really dangerous. The Eastern Conference remains Florida's to lose because they're the best. They're the pace car. You have to match them. Now, it would be fun to see Florida play Tampa in the first round. A lot of history there. Battle of the 2 Florida teams. But to me, even with Boston having a really good week, beating Toronto twice, getting a point off the Oilers, defeating the Pittsburgh Penguins yesterday, they currently are a point back of Florida, but Florida does have it's a race down the stretch, no doubt about it. But I think Florida's better. But Boston won't quit. They like to be in this mix. I'm sure they'd love to win the President's Trophy. They're tied with the Canucks in the standings right now, but Florida has 92 points, which is tops in the NHL. But interesting trade deadline. Some teams get better. The offseason interest will be about the Penguins and about Sidney Crosby. They got smoked yesterday. I just see the Edmonton Oilers scored another goal. They're down 2-0 10 minutes into this afternoon game. They're not good. They're an old team. They need change. I hope he's willing to hear them out and look around at options for himself moving forward. And I'll say till the cows come home that Colorado is the perfect fit with Nathan MacKinnon. Whether that happens or not, I don't know. But that's, to me, the intriguing storyline moving forward. Let's go to UFC 299, which was last night in the 305 in Miami-Dade County. It was billed as one of the great pay-per-views in recent memory. People comparing 299 to 300. I think you could say that the prelims of 300 might be better than the prelims of 299, but I don't know. Last night was a fantastic night of MMA. So many great fights that have massive stakes. And let's start with the Sugar Show, Sean O'Malley, who fought Marlon Cheeto Vera in a rematch of 2020 where Cheeto won, but it was a weird victory after seeing Cheeto kick O'Malley in the leg. A nerve went dead. He couldn't put any weight on that leg, and Cheeto got the TKO victory. It's the only loss in O'Malley's pro career. After that, Cheeto mixed results, defeats Dominic Cruz with a nasty head kick knockout, goes and defeats top guys in the division like Pedro Munoz, gets dominated by Corey Sandhagen, which wasn't good, but he has a history with Sean. Sean wins the belt in August, and he calls out Cheeto and says, "Let's do this. I want to kick your ass." Well, big build-up, two guys that don't like one another. And Sean O'Malley might have had his most dominant performance in the UFC last night. Completely on point, moving fantastic, low kicks, shot after shot, finding different ways to land them. And Cheeto had some moments. Fifth round, he landed a couple shots, but really those first three rounds, it was one-way traffic for Sean O'Malley. Cheeto's face at the end of the fight told the story. Didn't look like a real human, looked like an alien. And Sean won every scorecard from the judges. I think one judge gave him a 10-8. And he wins via unanimous decision. And still the bantamweight champion of the world. He's a massive star. The UFC has Ilia Topuria and Sean O'Malley right now, who are the next generation taking over and are household names. People know them, people like them or hate them, but they are creating interest, and that's all that matters. Sean O'Malley wants to fight Ilia Topuria. That fight can happen one day, but you need to build up to it. Topuria needs to defend his featherweight title. He just won it in February. O'Malley's only defended the bantamweight title one time, last night. That is a super fight in the making in the years to come. That is Conor McGregor fighting a Nate Diaz. That is Conor McGregor fighting a Dustin Poirier, if you will. You can make that fight happen. But you need to see these guys have some wins, for some impressive wins. I truly believe Topuria and O'Malley can have that effect. Topuria, maybe even more than O'Malley, because he's over the world. He's going to soccer games, and they're showering him with love. They know who he is. It's becoming a big thing for him over in Spain. But O'Malley, he rocked it last night. And he backs up what he says. Extremely good in the octagon. He's getting better. I don't think Cheeto was a tough opponent. I'm not surprised. I thought he was going to beat Cheeto Vera from Jump Street because he's just a better MMA fighter. But it was impressive. 299 to cap off the night. He just pieced him up the entire time. Merab Dvalishvili versus Sean O'Malley later in the year. That's the next fight. Dvalishvili has beaten Cejudo, Dominic Cruz. He's beaten Jose Aldo, former champion after former champion. He's gone in there and done it. Sandhagen would be great too, but Sandhagen's been out with injury, and I think he'll get another fight. Merab and Sean, there's a history because Merab and Aljamain Sterling are best buddies. They train at the same location in Vegas, and Merab can defend his friend's honor. I think it's a fun fight. I think it's an interesting fight. Merab's very good. He creates challenges for Sean because Sean he likes to strike. He doesn't like to take the fight to the ground. So it's interesting to see what would happen in that type of fight. But Sean O'Malley is a star. People can say, oh, you need to boost up his card so people. He is. He's a big star. People know who he is. See his shorts, see his hair, see his fighting style. Only 29. He could be doing this for a long time. Making crazy amounts of money. I want to see him and Topuria fight, but it shouldn't be. If I'm the UFC, I'm not doing it right now. I want this to build. I want both guys to continue to win at their respective division. Have success, dominate, clear people out. And then you fight each other in a big location. Maybe it's not the Sphere because Dana seems to want to protect the Sphere, but maybe it's, maybe you can do something what Jake Paul is doing. Fighting at Jerry Dome, Jerry's World in Dallas. Go over and have a big fight in London. I don't know. At a soccer stadium in Spain. Possibilities are endless, but I want both these guys to continue to build. They're young, have on their great careers. And then you fight. Then you have that huge, just massive fight between these two guys who are both really good. But Sean looked great. Sean versus Merab Dvalishvili. The next fight to make down the line for later in 2024. Co-main event, you had Dustin the Diamond Poirier, one of the great lightweights of all time, taking on new challenger, the God of War, Benoit Saint Denis. And going into this fight, Saint Denis was the betting favorite on FanDuel Sportsbook, which was stunning to me because, yes, Dustin Poirier had lost his last fight to Justin the Highlight Gaethje via a second-round head kick. But Dustin Poirier is great. Sure, he's never held undisputed gold. He lost a title fight to Khabib Nurmagomedov, who hasn't, coming off a head kick loss. But Dustin had beaten Michael Chandler, had been in there with the greats of the sport. Yes, he's 35 years old, but he's still that guy. When you look at Dustin Poirier's career, 30-8, lost to Charles Oliveira, but again, Charles Oliveira, the most wins in lightweight history. Defeated Conor McGregor twice, defeated Dan Hooker, beat Max Holloway twice, beat Eddie Alvarez, has beaten Justin Gaethje, has beaten Anthony Pettis, beaten Jim Miller, beaten Bobby King Green. I mean, this guy's had a hell of a career. He's been in there with everybody. But you get the God of War, who head kicked Matt Frevola in Madison Square Garden. They want to give him a big fight, a big opportunity, and Poirier agrees to it. It's crazy because Poirier is third in the division. Saint Denis is 11th. But Poirier said, I wanted a 5-round fight. I wanted somebody that was dangerous. And Saint Denis is that. And Eddie Alvarez gave me my shot to break through. And I'm going to give the same to Saint Denis. And Dustin won that fight, changed his life. The first round was incredible. The action in this fight. Back and forth. They're on the ground spot. 2 times Dustin was trying to go for the guillotine. Couldn't fully lock it in. Then Saint Denis passing guard laying some big shots. Both guys in the pocket throwing bombs. But one thing you noticed, Saint Denis didn't really focus on defense. Stayed in the pocket, stayed center line, and Dustin could just hammer him with rights. And into the second round, again, Dustin lands a big shot. You see Saint Denis go for the grappling exchange. Poirier tries to go guillotine, can't get it, slips out. They get back to the feet. He hits Saint Denis again. He's groggy. Tries to move forward. Poirier goes for a Darce choke. That doesn't work. But then they break, and Poirier lands another right. Drops Saint Denis, lands another shot on the ground, and Dustin, the Diamond, Poirier, back in the win column. A massive win for his career. He talked about, I don't know how much longer I'm going to do this. And he defeats a very scary dude at 155 pounds. He's a tough bastard. He'll fight anybody. Beats a killer. Here's where I sit with it. Poirier versus Islam Makhachev would be a very fun fight. Poirier fought Khabib. Khabib's best buddies with Islam. There's a connection there. You can sell that fight. Islam's manager, Ali, went on Twitter last night saying, let's do it, Dustin, Islam, in June. Well, above Dustin, you have Justin Gaethje. Gaethje beat Poirier in July. But Gaethje is fighting Max Holloway next month at UFC 300. I think that fight's going to be a bloodbath. Expecting that fight to be over after a round, I think, is unlikely. 2 tough dudes that are very difficult to knock out. And I think that fight's going to wear both of them down. And I think if Justin wins, I don't think he'll be ready to fight in June. That's just too quick a turnaround. April 13th fighting June 29th, I just don't think that's going to happen. So that's kind of ruled out. Charles Oliveira, who's fought Islam before, was supposed to fight Islam back in October, but he pulled out because of a cut. He's fighting Arman Tsarukyan at UFC 300 as well. 2 very good guys. Charles, most wins in lightweight history. Arman coming off a incredible knockout win over Beneil Dariush. So they're going to fight. Tricky fight. I don't know who's going to win that one. I can't wait to watch it. I don't know who's going to win that fight. Again, they're fighting on that same April 13th card. So are either of them going to be ready to turn around and fight in June if that's when they do Islam's next title defense? And I think it makes sense if they want Islam to fight at International Fight Week because he's a fun fight, he is a draw, and he's fun. But those guys might not be ready. But you look, Mateusz Gamrot, he fought last night. He beat former champion Rafael dos Anjos, and Gamrot is really good. Fantastic grappler. Chandler's going to fight McGregor at some point. So he's not fighting. Dariush has lost 3 in a row. No. Fiziev is injured. Jalen Turner is reportedly going to be fighting Renato Moicano on International Fight Week. To me, Poirier makes sense. He's a name. He's never won undisputed gold. Him and Islam would be a fun fight. Two good boxers. Whether that's the way the UFC wants to go, they might push back Islam fighting. They might not want him to fight in June. But they have options at the lightweight division. And Poirier keeps himself in the mix because of KOing. And Dana White said this at the press conference. Last night was a Poirier fight. That's where you become a fucking legend. With that type of performance against that dude. And he's right. That was phenomenal. The rest of the card, we had the debut of Michael Venom Page, former champion of Bellator, fighting Kevin Holland. A weird fighter, keeps himself in weird positions, will throw crazy exchanges. I think Kevin Holland was really frustrated fighting Venom Page because he couldn't land anything. But it was a lot of dipsy doodle. It's more of a show more than anything else. And you had this, like, Paulo Costa tweeted, embarrassing. Then you have Megan Anderson, MVP just took Kevin Holland to school. What an impressive debut. He's fast. I liked it. I thought it was fine. You need the right dance partner with him to make a fun fight. I do think he has cachet. I do think he's an interesting fighter. Come Monday, he will be in the rankings because he just beat Kevin Holland. And Kevin Holland was ranked 13th, so he'll enter the rankings. Wonder Boy and Venom Page would be fun. Because these two guys both have two of the weirdest stances in UFC history. That'd be a fun fight. Sean Brady, Michael Venom Page. Fun fight. He's an interesting, I just think you need to find the right opponent and it'll be a fun fight. He's a hard guy to game plan for. That's for sure. He doesn't take huge shots. He was on point last night. He doesn't get a finish, so it doesn't look as good. But he's very game. Solid opponent. Kevin Holland's a tough dude as well. So kudos to Michael Venom Page. Jack Della Maddalena knocks out Gilbert Burns at the end of the third round. Huge finish for him. Biggest win of his career. Has had some tough fights recently. I didn't think he was going to win this fight. Because his last couple he fought Bavil Hafez, and he lost a round in that fight. I thought he lost the fight. He fought Kevin Holland. I didn't think he won that fight. But he keeps winning. Now 17-2 as a pro. Undefeated in the UFC. And he calls out, maybe, you could argue, the most dangerous man in the 170-pound division, Shavkat Rakhmonov, who nobody wants to fight. He calls him out and says, let's do this. A nasty knee to the head of Gilbert, landing some ground and pound. He landed about 12 more shots than he should have. I'm fine for that. He's going to be in the top 5 of the rankings. He'll likely be in the top 5 of those rankings come Monday because he was 11. You fight number 4. You're going to leapfrog some people. Shavkat is 3. I'm down for that fight. I think that's a fun fight. We'll see, but a big win for Jack Della. Game guy. Really good performance. Petr Yan, Song Yadong. What a fun fight. 3 rounds, no finish, but Song was so fast to start landing shots. Petr Yan looked a little tentative early. lost a number in a row, no longer the champion. Does he still have it? Second and third rounds, he puts on the speed. He puts on the boxing. Taking down Song looks fantastic. Petr Yan back in the win column. 17-5 as a pro. Only 31. Again, only 31 he was champion. He has some guys that he's already fought because he's been in this division a long time. For Petr Yan, I look up and go, you're number 4. Sandhagen's sitting there, but I don't think they're going to make that fight. Aljo's no longer in the division. Petr Yan and Cheeto could make some sense after Cheeto loses the title fight. Cejudo, Petr Yan, potentially. But he's really good. Figueiredo, if Figueiredo can beat Garbrandt at UFC 300, that would be a fun fight between Petr Yan and Figueiredo. So they have options for him. But he's good, still game. But you get to the prelims. Curtis Blades knocks out Jailton Almeida. In this fight, Curtis Blades could be next for Tom Aspinall in the heavyweight title for the interim heavyweight championship. First round, Almeida controlled it for all 5 minutes. Kept dragging Curtis to the ground, grappling exchanges, take him to the ground, take it to the ground. Curtis was never in a position to lose the fight, and that's why I think Jailton Almeida makes some mistakes. He didn't get to finish Derek Lewis, and he had him down the entire fight. He just doesn't try to be aggressive, to try to finish these fights. Second round starts. He comes in, trying to get a takedown. Gets down to his knees. Curtis Blades just start hammering him. Hammer fist, hammer fist, hammer fist. It's about 12 shots. He finally lets go of the leg. Just trying to cover up in pain. Curtis Blades lands another 2 shots. The fight is over just like that. Curtis Razor Blades has history with Tom Aspinall. They fought in July of 2022. Tom Aspinall tore his ACL about a minute into the first round. It was a 5-round main event. They never got to do it. Curtis Blades then fought Sergey Pavlovich, got knocked out. But now he beats Almeida, who was undefeated in UFC. I think it makes sense. Tom's looking for an opponent, says he doesn't want to fight Cyril Gane because he doesn't deserve it. He said he'd be watching this fight because either guy could earn an opportunity. He said he wanted to fight Blades again because they do have history. They're doing an event in the UK this summer. Blades, Aspinall could headline it. Something to think about for sure. But good for Curtis Blades. Macy Barber gets her 6th straight win. She defeats Caitlin Chuagan in a very tight 3-round fight. She's been game. She's winning her fights. In that division, she says she wants a rematch with Alexa Grasso. She'll move into the top 5. She'll get the 4th ranking. Blanchfield and Manaf-Farrow are fighting in a couple weeks at UFC Atlantic City. The winner of that will likely get the champion. Macy talked about moving up, fighting Juliana Pena, potentially. She has options, certainly. But, Macy Barber is legit. She's great. You have Mateus Gamrot, as I mentioned. He defeats RDA in a close fight. Kyler Phillips, really great. Best performance of his UFC career against Pedro Munoz. He'll be back in the bantamweight rankings on Monday. Early prelims, Philip Blins defeats Michelle Pereira. Dance routine on the way out. Then comes out, scorches Michael Ojacek with 2 huge body shots in the liver. Ojacek's trying to cover up. Pereira jumps in, gets the rear naked choke. Ojacek's too tough. Doesn't tap out. Puts him to sleep. Pereira has won 2 straight fights at middleweight since moving up from 170. Defeated Andre Petrovsky in a minute and 6 seconds via a knockout. Defeats Ojachuk in a minute and 1 seconds. This guy is legit. This guy is dangerous at 185. It's time for him to get a ranked opponent. Looking at those, Anthony Hernandez, Fluffy, would be a fun fight. You do have Hamzat Chimaev in there, Chris Curtis, but I think Hernandez, Pereira, fun fight. He's dangerous. He's still huge. I don't know how he made 170, but he's great. You had the debut of Robles Despang. Prior to his UFC debut, his last 3 fights he had won in 18 seconds combined. Saturday night, he wins the fight in 18 seconds against Josh Parisian. So he is huge. He's 6'7", bronze medalist in Taekwondo in the Olympics, longest wingspan in UFC history. He makes a statement. Fun fighter already in the heavyweight division. That was the card. It was awesome. Loved it. Great storylines. Also this weekend, Anthony Joshua knocked out Francis Ngannou, knocked him out cold. Just nasty, nasty stuff. First round gets a knockdown. The round ends to kind of save Francis. 8 seconds into the second round, just a straight overhand right. Knocks him back. His leg got caught underneath him. Just a big moment for Joshua. He'll now get the winner of Tyson Fury and Alexander Usyk, who are fighting in May in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. So he wants to be undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. He used to be a champion, lost to Andy Ruiz. He's had an up and down career. He seems centered right now, better than he ever has been. What Ngannou does from here, I don't know. I do think there's still going to be options for him in boxing. It makes more sense for him to fight Deontay Wilder now. Wilder lost in December. These two guys wanted to square up. That would make some sense. You got, does he go back to the PFL and does he go back to MMA now? Reportedly, he made $20 million fighting Anthony Joshua, so the money is in boxing. His next boxing event will be highly advertised. It will be talked about. So if I was him, I'm not going back to the PFL. I'm not going back to MMA right away. Take some time off, recover from this knockout, and fight a Deontay Wilder, which people will be interested in later in the year. Probably in Saudi Arabia, because that's where all his fights are right now. But this what should happen against Tyson Fury. I don't know if Fury didn't prepare or what, because you got a guy who's an MMA fighter against a guy who's an actual boxer. Just like if Anthony Joshua went into the octagon, Francis Ngannou would kill him. That's kind of what should happen, and Joshua knocked him the hell out on Friday night. NFL trade deadline is tomorrow. Today's also the last day of NCAA basketball's regular season. Conference tournaments start as soon as Tuesday. Looking forward to that. Like today, you got Purdue wrapping up their season. They're up 10 on Wisconsin, their last game. Ohio State Rutgers this afternoon. You had Arizona lose to USC last night, which was a big loss. But Tennessee also lost yesterday. So a lot of these games have things to do with seeding and who's going to be a number one seed and all that jazz. So a lot to be determined in these conference title games. The NCAA tournament, the first 4 begins a week from Tuesday, so it'll be here before we know it. But tomorrow, NFL trade deadline starts at noon. Before we get going, Chris Jones is staying with the Kansas City Chiefs. 95 total million $95 guaranteed $1 million for him. He earned it. They clearly didn't want to lose him. L'Jarius Sneed might leave, but Chris Jones is the huge part of that defense. 5-year deal. He's sticking around. But then you had Justin Madubuike, who had a great year for Baltimore. He signed for 4-year $98 million with $75.5 million guaranteed. So, and Justin Madubuike signed first. It doesn't surprise me. Chris Jones gets over that number, becomes the highest paid player at the position. But two big name pass rushers are staying put. Hunter Henry, the tight end for the Patriots, re-signed for 3 years. Also this morning, the Patriots traded former first-round pick, 15th overall, Mac Jones, to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Mac Jones, a Jacksonville native, returns home. The Patriots will get a 6th-round draft pick in the trade. So the Mac Jones era is over. I'm actually happy for him because they killed him. They killed his confidence. He was horrible. So I'm happy that he gets this opportunity. I truly am. Tyrann Mathieu also signed with New Orleans. We'll see, but tomorrow, Russell Wilson coming down the pike. Kirk D. Cousins connected heavily with the Atlanta Falcons. Sounds like he's going to leave the Minnesota Vikings. There are some good players available. What do teams do? Does Justin Fields get traded this week from the Chicago Bears? Do any teams actually want him? So all that and more coming this week. Talk some NBA this week. We're getting closer to the start of the MLB season. Dodgers, Padres will head to Korea very soon. But it was a great weekend. Got to spend some time with friends. Enjoyed it. Getting ready for NFL free agency, all that noise. We'll be back on Tuesday. Hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend. Enjoy your Monday. We'll talk to you soon. This is To The Point.